She was only 16, her heart still innocent, and her soul still burning with the dreams of a child who longed to see the wide world beyond her small village. Her name was Amina, and she had grown up in a modest mud brick home with her widowed mother who worked endlessly in the fields just to put food on the table. Amina's father had died when she was only 6, leaving them with debts that never seemed to vanish. No matter how much her mother struggled, every neighbor knew the family's plight, and although some sympathized, others whispered that poverty was a curse that would one day demand a price. That price came sooner than anyone expected, for one day a man old enough to be her grandfather walked through the dusty path leading to their home, his clothes shimmering with wealth, his mustache long and grey, his eyes sharp and calculating. His name was Haji Sulman. He had married to wives before, and yet greed and desire still pulled him toward another bride. When he saw Amina carrying a clay pot of water, her scarf slipping slightly from her hair, he stopped and stared in a way that made her skin crawl. Within a week, Haji Sulman had approached her mother, offering money enough to clear the debts, buy new land, and give comfort that the poor widow had never known. At first, Amina's mother refused, her heart breaking at the thought of her daughter becoming the wife of a man older than herself. But the whispers of relatives, the pressure of neighbors, Amina cried, begged, even threw herself at her mother's feet, but her pleas were met with silence, because poverty has a louder voice than love. The day of the marriage was not filled with joy but with silent tears. Amina wore a red bridal dress, her eyes swollen from crying, her lips trembling as the women around her sang songs that carried no meaning to her broken heart. The guests feasted, the drums beat loudly, and Haji Sulman smiled with pride as if he had conquered a kingdom. But inside, Amina felt as if her soul had been buried alive. That night, she sat in the corner of his large house, staring at walls decorated with gold and carpets softer than anything she had ever touched. Yet she felt no comfort, only chains. He spoke to her in a voice that demanded obedience. She woke early to serve him, to cook meals, to endure his endless complaints. Her friends had stopped visiting her mother, yet deep inside her heart, a spark refused to die. She dreamed still of freedom, of love. It was in those silent prayers that destiny began to shift. One evening, while fetching water from the courtyard, she stumbled and dropped the pot, shattering it into pieces. Trembling with fear of his anger, she tried to gather the shards, but a young servant boy ran to help her. His name was Rohim, no older than 20, strong from years of labor, his eyes kind yet fiery, as if he could see the storm inside her. That single glance awakened something within her heart. She thought she had lost forever hope. From that day, Rohim found small excuses to linger near. At first, Amina resisted, afraid of what discovery could bring, but her loneliness was a heavy stone that his kindness slowly lifted. Little did she know, Haji Sulman's watchful eyes missed nothing, and the seeds of suspicion had already been planted. The current finds its way forward. Amina's story was far from over, it had only begun. And dear listener, if you have followed her tale this far, for life has a way of turning the darkest nights into the brightest dawns, stay with us. And if you wish to hear the rest of Amina's journey, make sure you subscribe and join our family, so together we can keep bringing stories that stir the heart and remind us that even in pain, hope never dies. The days in Sulman's house grew heavier with each passing hour, for suspicion is a shadow that never sleeps, and Haji Sulman's shadow was long and dark. The old man felt the tremor in the air, the delicate energy of a bond forming, where he wished only obedience. Sulman cornered Amina with questions that made her heart thunder. Why did she linger in the courtyard? Why did her eyes shine when Rohim entered the room? Terrified, she denied everything, tears streaming down her face. But his rage was not calmed. That night he struck her, his voice echoing through the mansion like a storm, and Amina curled in silence, praying to a God who seemed so far away. But pain has a strange power. It does not always destroy. Sometimes it awakens courage. And from that night, Amina's fear began to harden into resolve. He would leave small notes tucked into the folds of her shawl. Simple words like "be strong" and "you are not alone" to Amina. Those notes were more precious than gold, and she kept them hidden under her pillow, reading them again and again in the dark hours of the night. As weeks passed, their bond deepened, unspoken yet undeniable, and though their hands rarely touched, their souls were already entangled in a secret promise. Rahim found the courage to speak more openly. In the shade of the fig tree in the courtyard, he told Amina of his dream to leave servitude, to earn a living with his own hands, to build a life where he would never be under another man's command. His eyes burned with determination, and in them, Amina saw a mirror of her own yearning for freedom. "Come with me when the time is right," he whispered, his voice trembling not with fear, but with hope. Her heart leapt, but fear tightened its grip. Where would they go? How would they survive? What if they were caught? Yet even as doubt clouded her mind, a quiet flame of courage began to spread in her chest. That night, she lay awake, her pulse echoing the rhythm of Rahim's words, and for the first time since her forced marriage, she allowed herself to dream of escape. Sulman returned unexpectedly early the next day and found Amina humming softly as she ground spices in the kitchen. It was not the song that troubled him, but the light in her eyes, a light he had never put there. His suspicion grew into certainty, and without warning he called Rahim into the room. Of daring to plant seeds of betrayal in his own house, Amina's breath caught as Sulman raised his stick to strike Rahim, but before the blow could fall, Rahim's hand shot out and caught the old man's wrist. Yet in that moment, Rahim's eyes blazed with a fire that refused to bow. "Enough," he said, his voice low but steady. Amina's world tilted, fear, love, and destiny colliding in a storm she could barely comprehend. Sulman, enraged beyond reason, screamed for the guards, his voice shaking the air. But Rahim did not flinch. He pulled Amina close, shielding her behind him as if his body were the only wall between her and the darkness that had suffocated her life. In that chaos, a miracle unfolded. Amina found her voice. She stepped forward, tears and fire burning together in her eyes, and declared that she would no longer live as a prisoner. Her words cut through the noise like thunder, silencing even Sulman for a moment. The guards hesitated, unsure whether to obey their master or listen to the truth they had all suspected but never dared to speak. 4 years they had watched him marry and bury wives, demand obedience, and crush spirits. But now a girl's trembling voice revealed the monster behind the wealth. It was in that fragile silence that Rahim made his choice. He took Amina's hand and, with one last glance of defiance, pulled her toward the door. The guards stepped aside, not out of loyalty to Sulman, but out of quiet respect for courage they themselves lacked. The old man's screams echoed behind them, promising revenge, but Amina and Rahim did not stop. They ran through the dusty streets, their lungs burning, their hearts pounding not only with fear but with the first taste of freedom. The villagers watched in stunned silence as the young servant and the girl bride disappeared into the night, whispers rising like sparks from a fire. Some cursed them, others envied them, and though the road ahead was uncertain, her soul soared with the knowledge that she had chosen her destiny at last. Days turned into weeks as she and Rahim wandered from village to village, working small jobs, living humbly, but smiling freely. They had little more than the clothes on their backs, yet they possessed something no gold could buy: freedom, and love that grew stronger with each trial. In time, they built a life together, raising a small home with their own hands, planting seeds not only in the soil but in their future. And though Sulman's threats reached their ears from time to time, they no longer feared him, for they had discovered a truth more powerful than wealth or status, that the human spirit, once awakened, cannot be enslaved again. Years later, when villagers spoke of the poor young girl forced to marry a man older than her father, they did not tell a tale of tragedy but of courage, of a girl who defied chains and a servant who dared to love her. And dear listener, if this story touched your heart, let it remind you that no matter how heavy the shadows of life may be, light always waits on the other side. Stay with us for more journeys of hope, love, and resilience. And if you have not already, subscribe now so that you never miss a story that proves the impossible can be overcome when courage and love walk hand in hand.